I'll open the special meeting of the Board of Commissioners on Monday, November the 18th, 2019. And to begin, Patrick, if you'll get us started, please.
Thank you, Chairman Helms. I'm going to go through this fairly quickly, but I just want to give you all an update on what we've been working on for the past 6-7 months since your meeting in March, where you gave staff direction the last time. The current status, March 2019, that was the last time the board met as a group to talk about fire funding. At that time, you all showed your intention to move forward with an 80-20 funding model. That'd be 80% of the department's budget coming out of the district, 20% coming from a county-wide subsidy. April 2019, June 2019, the management team met with all the departments to get a better idea of their service needs, funding needs, their operations, just getting up to speed on where each individual department was. July 2019 through September 2019, some departments do a very good job of projecting out their long-term capital. Others hadn't really been asked to think about that. So we reached out to each department to have them look ahead 10 years to say, where are your capital needs over the next decade? We got all that laid out. I'll show you an example of what we are able to generate based on that information a little bit later. I've worked with tax, finance, Jeff's office, Van's office, try to get you the most accurate projections we can at this point to show you what these tax districts would look like if they were in place today. And then November 2018 is today. This is hopefully the final presentation to you all before we actually go out and start implementing these fire service districts.
2019, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir. We're not going back in time.
I was wondering if I missed something.
November 18th, so that is today. From here, we will have to go out and get municipal approval. Indian Trail, Fairview, Wesley Chapel, Marshville, Lake Park, Hemby Bridge, Stallings, Unionville, and Wingate will all need to pass municipal resolution. Some of those will be because a district is new, and some of those will be because we are extending a district. Hemby Bridge's district will actually be considered a new district to pick up some of those outlying properties that are not currently paying a tax or a fee. Hemby Bridge has several municipalities in that district, so each one of those municipalities will have to pass that resolution. The Board of Commissioners will be presented with information and have to make certain findings. The considerations will be population, appraised value, ability of the district to sustain the fire tax, and any other matters that the Board of Commissioners deems important. That'll come back to you in the next month or two. I've been working with Ben to try to figure out what the timeline is moving forward. The Board of Commissioners has to find that there is a need for providing fire service. It is impractical to provide fire service on a county-wide basis, and it is economically feasible without unreasonable annual tax levies. So again, this will come back before the board in the next several months for you all to make these actions. From there, we need to generate a report and then advertise that report. The report will contain the proposed district, a map of the proposed district, a statement showing the proposed district meets standards, and a plan for providing service in that area. Once that's all done, public notice will go out. There are different timeframes we have to meet based on the general statutes, but ultimately the board will have a public hearing on these new fire service districts. Once that's done, as part of the budget process, the fire tax rates will be set, and then the Board of Commissioners will adopt those as part of the budget process next year. This is a valuation chart. I just wanted to give the board an idea of how these districts are made up. So you can see it's based on the highest value at the top and lowest value at the bottom. So Wesley Chapel's fire service area has $5.4 billion of valuation. That goes all the way down to Griffith Road that has $128 million. So you can see there's a pretty substantial difference from the highest to the lowest. I want to point out the deferred farm value to the far right. This is what is not being taxed currently. So if a property was worth $100,000 and we were only taxing $20,000 of that, the $20,000 would be in the real property line. and then the 80,000 would be over here in the farm deferred value. So you can see as we move down, proportionally, there is a lot more of that deferred value in some of the smaller fire service areas. This is the 10-year capital I mentioned earlier. We really try to get the departments to think long-term, to say, listen, if you know you need a fire truck in 5 years, let's start planning for it now. Start looking at that replacement schedule so we don't see the spikes in their capital needs. We tried to give them more information than they had in the past with regard to tax base value, and applied a certain assumption of growth in both sales tax, evaluation, and operations to show what that would do to their budget moving forward. These are hypothetical tax rates. So if the 80-20 was in place today with the 2020 budget, this is what they would look like. The valuation is just pulled from that previous sheet. Sales tax for the tax districts, we have a little bit better idea what that would be. In the current fee districts, they do not get sales tax, so it's a bit of a educated guess at this point. It won't be until a full year of collections before we'll have a pretty solid idea of what those sales tax collections would be. You can see the right, again, hypothetical tax rates if they were in place today. You'd have Wesley Chapel at a 3.81, and Wingate would be the highest at 11.79. And when we started looking at this, it became pretty evident that there was a difference between the urban districts and the rural districts. So this, at staff's direction, we looked at what that actually looks like. And if you look at the valuation between Mineral Springs and Unionville, you can see there's about a $500 million difference in valuation. Looking at it, it was a pretty clear delineation point that that's what we looked at and said, all right, Wesley Chapel, Hemby Bridge, Stallings, Waxhaw, Bakers, and Springs is more urban, and then the rest are rural. What you are looking at here is an 80-20 model for those urban districts and a 60-40 model for the rural districts. What it allows is to reduce some of those higher rates, the 10s, 11s, 12s in the rural district, and brings them down to a more manageable tax rate. On a countywide, the total subsidy, both 20 and 40, would be $3.9 million, which would equate to a 0.0145 countywide rate. Something else we would like to do moving forward is air packs, when they need replaced, it is better if they were all replaced at the same time. Some departments do purchase a couple a year, and that makes sense until they come out with a new standard. Then you have several packs that were purchased at different times and different standards. Some of them can be upgraded, some of them can't be upgraded, and it makes more sense from operations standpoint if they're all purchased at the same time. What that means is for Wesley Chapel, when they have to replace air packs, it's a $600,000 expense. So even with a district that has a value of $5.4 billion, that would be a significant spike in that tax that year. So what we would like to do is pull that expense out and fund that as part of the countywide. That way we can plan for it, and it won't impact those districts' tax rates when they do need to purchase new air packs. You can see the current countywide is 0.0133, so it'd be a $0.25 higher than it is right now. And again, these are hypothetical. Next year's will be based on next year's valuation and next year's budget needs. So this is just a snapshot of what it would have looked like July 1, 2019.
Do you have an, excuse me, do you
Yes,
have
sir.
an understanding of how many stations are gonna need air packs per year? I mean, you're not gonna have half of them needed the same year?
No, it's
Or
part
they
of
spread out?
As part of that capital, when we met with departments, we asked for their air pack needs. So there are certain years where there are several departments that need them, but we are trying to spread them out enough to where we have money in that sinking fund to be able to pay for them as they come up. And we still need to work with departments to fine-tune that, but based on the initial look, it would be a pretty linear funding level to be able to fund every department. So I think that is the end of my presentation, but I can certainly answer any questions you all may have.
Commissioner Rushing?
You said that, like if there was a change in standards, well, wouldn't that mean every department, we would be buying them for every department at the same time?
Not every department uses the same manufacturer. Some use Scott, some use MSA, and it depends on when their last air packs were purchased. So they have a 15-year useful life. They have to be, the bottles have to be recertified every 5 years. The harnesses themselves, the manufacturers plan for a certain upgrade cycle, but sometimes the harness is different, within that 15 years. So you end up on different standards. So it really depends on when they purchased them last time.
Commissioner Rick?
Patrick, I know each department, we don't want to micromanage what kind of air pack they get, but the Scott being produced here in Union County, I would ask them to certainly give it a good look because it puts money back in Union County.
Yes, sir. And I know a number of departments do use Scott air packs.
And I think masks are a major things that may be the difference. I think one of the vendors just upgraded the mask. It's not compatible for the last couple of years. And I'm looking for Don to shake his head, yes or no.
But you're right, that's the type of situation you run into where if you have packs across different standards, some could be upgraded and some couldn't be upgraded.
Can you repair a pack? In other words, if you say it's got a 15-year life cycle and Don loses 3 air bottles, can he repair them or does he have to replace them?
I believe they're a replacement if they're damaged, and then after that 15 years, they can't be certified. Is that correct?
Okay. Any other questions?
Mr. Chair, Patrick, in discussions we were having last week, in talking or discussing about the differentiation between urban and rural, I asked you what the percentage of urban budget total was as a percentage percent of the whole, and then what the rural was, and I believe that calculation came out to be that 70% of the total expenditure countywide for fire service resides in the urban districts,
Yes, sir.
and so that's six fire districts, and that would be, so 11 fire districts equate for, or equal to 30% of the total budget.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Okay.
Just a couple other things. This process would allow us to correct those Hemby Bridge outliers that I spoke of before, so it would create a new district. So all those people in the Hemby Bridge service area would be paying the same amount. Providence Rural, we're still working with legal on the best method forward, but we anticipate that would become its own rural district or urban district that would be taxed at the same rate as Wesley Chapel, since that's currently who's providing the service.
We've been having this conversation, I know, for 7 years, trying to figure out how to make progress on this. Clearly, the old model doesn't work in today's environment, so I appreciate what y'all have done. Y'all have been very diligent trying to come up with a recommendation, and this is not the first pass. We've been looking at passes, and the board, various members have made recommendations. Y'all come up with what I think is an impressive model that we can move forward with.
Thank you.
If that's, you ready for a motion?
Yes, sir. Unless there's any other questions I can answer.
Okay. Well, I'll make a motion to direct staff to commence the process for a fire services funding strategy beginning in FY '21, outlined as follows. Implement a fire services funding model with certain urban fire funding districts funded with approximately 80% funds raised from the fire funding district and 20% general fund dollars. Certain rural funding districts be funded approximately 60% funds raised from the fire funding district taxes and 40% from the general fund. The urban districts shall be Wesley Chapel, Waxhaw, Stallings, Springs, Hemby Bridge, Providence, and Baker's funded districts. The rural districts shall be the Unionville, Fairview, New Salem, Wingate, Beaver Lane, Stack Road, Lanes Creek, Allen's Cross Road, Griffith Road, Jackson, and Sandy Ridge funding districts. To abolish all other fee-supported districts and replace those districts with a fire service tax districts within the same boundaries to establish a fire service tax district overlay, the current Hemby Bridge Rural Fire Protection District, to include certain parcels not currently in any fire funding districts. I leave out anything?
No, sir.
Okay. Discussion? All in favor? Aye. All against?
Nay.
Okay. One nay. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Chairman. And I apologize for scheduling this at 1 o'clock. I didn't plan that out, so now we got some time before at 3 o'clock.
All right. Mr. Manager, is there anything else we need to address in this one?
Not at this time, but.
Okay. Then I move to adjourn the special meeting of the Board of Commissioners. All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Thank you.